Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Jim Langevin, member of the Intelligence Committee, Armed Services Committee, and ranking member of the Intelligence, Emerging Threats, and Capabilities Subcommittee. Welcome, sir. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Glad to be with you, Alex.
As I look at this resume, it tells me that you're the man to answer this question. Should the U.S. strike ISIS in Syria to preempt an attack on the U.S. homeland?
Well, ISIS is a significant threat to U.S. national security, especially given the what we estimate to be dozens of individuals with U.S. passports who are fighting with ISIS. Could be over 100 who are people with U.S. passports who are in Syria fighting, whether it's against the Assad regime or with ISIS. So those individuals could very well return home and could pose a significant threat to U.S. national security. That's exactly why the Great Britain just upped its threat level because of the significant number of individuals with British passports who could or have returned home and could pose a threat to British security. So Chairman Dempsey, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has said that there is a significant, obviously, ISIS threat both in Syria and coming from Iraq, and that they very well would have to go into Syria to attack ISIS at its core.
Representative Langevin, my question is, these people that we say are Americans that are going, or Westerners, and going fighting alongside ISIS, do we know specifically who they are? Have we tracked them, or is this an approximation? And if we don't know specifically who they are, what are the challenges in figuring that out?
Yeah, and that's obviously that is the challenge. Some of these individuals are known to the intelligence community. Others, we are still obviously doing fact-finding and research to know exactly who they are. But we have good enough intelligence to know there are a significant number of individuals with U.S. passports who are there.
Here's President on Thursday. Let's take a listen to this.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We don't have a strategy yet. I think what I've seen in some of the news reports suggests that folks are getting a little further ahead of where we're at than we currently are. And I think that's not just my assessment, but the assessment of our military as well.
Sir, what was your assessment to that statement from the President?
Well, it says to me that the President is taking his time, using extreme due diligence, listening to both his military and national security leadership, along with Secretary Kerry and Secretary of Defense Hagel, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to develop the right strategy. And part of it will likely be a military strategy. Other parts of it will be diplomatic. By way of example, I was just with President Obama last night. He was in Rhode Island. And the President spoke about the fact that because ISIS is demonstrating how violent and extreme they are, it's showing and how they really have hijacked the Islamic religion and are manipulating and using it with awful consequences, that this is an opportunity for the Sunni and the Shia to put aside their differences, come together, and fight against this radical element that is using the Islamic religion for terrible, obviously, purposes and intent, and being very violent.
May I ask you, the President said that this may be overhyped to some degree, not placing blame on where that's coming from, but do you agree with that? Is it overhyped, the threat of ISIS?
I don't believe it's overhyped at all. We've seen how violent they are, how they will kill indiscriminately. We saw the American journalist who was beheaded. They are extremely dangerous, extremely violent. And my concern is, of course, that they could very well come here and carry out serious, devastating attacks here on the homeland. We can't let that happen. We saw what happened with Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, how they were allowed to plot and plan going unchecked. We can see, and we're more aware now of the ISIS threat. And the challenge is, how do we contain it? And it won't be obviously easy, especially going into Syria, if that's what happens. I will say this: I don't have an appetite, and my constituents don't have an appetite for putting large numbers of U.S. troops on the ground. I don't believe that that's going to be the President's strategy. If anything, it would be targeted airstrikes, whether it's drones or with U.S. aircraft. but it's going to have to be done, again, in cooperation with allies, nations in the world, around the world who are in the region, who are going to have to step up and work with us on this type of strategy.
Well, that, though, sir, is a
diplomatic
challenge. The political solution would require these countries and these groups with very divergent goals and allegiances to all join together. Is it realistic to think this time around that all the players, Shia, Sunni, Kurd, will put aside sect and history and culture to come together in the name of peace?
Well, in some ways, we're already seeing it. We have new political leadership in Iraq. I think Prime Minister Maliki was a disaster as a prime minister, and he was told for years by the United States and others that he has to be more inclusive. And if he's not, then the elements that he's leaving out, the Sunni elements he's leaving out, are going to be part of the problem as opposed to part of the solution. We saw that. That's why ISIS was really able to rise in strength to where it is right now. The new leadership, we have a new president in Iraq, we have a new prime minister, a new speaker of the parliament, and this new president is being much more inclusive. So the right things are being done diplomatically there. We have to see that effort strengthen.
May I ask you, King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia is issuing a new warning today, and here's the quote: "Terrorism at this time is an evil force that must be fought with wisdom and speed, and if neglected, I'm sure after a month it will arrive in Europe, and a month after that in America." And he also said, sir, that the international community must face the terrorists. So what is your reaction to those comments, and why would King Abdullah be saying this?
Sure. I think King Abdullah is right on point, and I have met with King Abdullah in the past, and he has struck a similar tone. He is someone that has always been very supportive of diplomacy and bringing parties together. And just as President Obama said to me and to the group that we was with last night, that this is an opportunity for groups with divergent backgrounds to come together, this time put their differences aside, work together to confront this violent extremism and try to create a more stable Iraq, a more stable Middle East, if you will.
All right. Rhode Island Democratic Representative Jim Langevin, thank you very much for your time.